Hi, this is Lee Solden again. Um, this is a live video at the at World Languages Facebook page. Continuation of today's lecture, which is about read-throughs, which is the third part and the bulk of what a person does in my system, which is a type of natural language acquisition. I call my particular type of this accelerated immersion. Okay, and this is introduction. Again, I'm Lee Solden. I am learning and I teach what I know: Greek, Italian, Dutch, French, Spanish, German, Russian, Korean, Hindi, Mandarin, mainstream Arabic, and Brazilian Portuguese. Okay, um, so where I left off, talk about doing read-throughs where you're creating your own material sometimes, or maybe somebody's working with you and telling you what the sentences in a story mean. Okay, so one thing I learned is it's a good idea to try to do everything all at the same time. In other words, the most effective way you can get something out of your passive listening is to precede it by doing some ear tuning exercises to that language so you hear it better, followed by doing read throughs, about a half hour of read throughs for it, followed by 2 hours of passive listening. If you're going to go more than 2 hours of passive listening to that language or to that audiobook you're learning, then stop, do another half hour of the read throughs. Okay, so and again, this came back from my days of doing this all with common phrase videos. Okay, I want to talk about another purpose of read throughs. Okay, in read throughs, you're reading the sentences as they're being spoken. You're being quiet. You're not actually saying anything yourself. You're listening to what the person is saying on the audiobook, and you're reading along. That reading while listening helps straighten out uh, your accent. It straightens out the way it makes it so you speak the language correctly by listening to it. So it's not just to learn the words. You're learning to hear them correctly, and you're because you're hearing this stuff, because you are hearing it correctly and you understand it, you end up starting to speak it. It's all an automatic function of the speech center. So it's not just the read throughs are not just for you to learn the language, but it's something you should do even after you know an audiobook. You go through the audiobook you already know and do read throughs. Like say if you're very advanced at German, hey, maybe you know every word in that first audiobook you started with months ago because you've went through it a few times. You're still going to want to go back to that very first audiobook and read it while listening, and then rewind at the beginning and just listen to it carefully. So read throughs be done not just to pick up a language, but to promote fluency by becoming very, very familiar with material that you already know well. I always tell people to pick like 5 favorite things in a language and keep going back to those and keep doing read-throughs for those their 5 favorite things, and get to know a portion of the German or a portion of the Spanish, etc., very, very well. I believe that that is what promotes fluency. Um, so over time, a person learning German from me is going to keep learning new audiobooks, and they're going to do read-throughs for their new audiobook. Well, by their 6th or 7th audiobook, that's just a matter of going through the audiobook, writing down the words they don't know, sending me a list. I put the definitions there, and they get it back, and then they listen to it while reading it, and maybe then just listen to it. Okay, so their read through at this point, instead of like one sentence at a time, where beginners are going to start, is doing a whole audiobook, and the setup for those read throughs is rather minimal at that point because the person's getting a good grasp on German. They don't have that many words they don't know. And by the way, I've tried making those lists up myself and guessing what words a person would not know. And I found that I can't guess. I just don't know what a person has or has not learned. People pick up different words, right? So at a certain point, I have the person just write down the words. That keeps me sharp because they give me a list of words. I might have to look up a couple myself. Okay, I might not have seen that video for a while, but most of them I know because I learned the same video before myself. And in any case, they quickly get a list back from me, and they can use it to complete their read-throughs for that audiobook. Okay. Another purpose for read-throughs is combine it with smear tuning. Well, how do you do that? Okay, so I teach a person right off the bat to read at the speed the audiobook is being said, because ear tuning syllables, the ear tuning exercises do that. They get you reading it at the speed it's spoken. But then I want to start encouraging the student to read faster. Try to read well ahead of the guy. So I'm going to start out right where the person's speaking, and then try to read ahead. See if you can get 2 paragraphs ahead. Build your reading speed up. And it's not that I care about the reading speed so much, it's this. Once you're comfortable with your reading speed for a language, you can always read ahead of the speaker a little bit. And when you see something that you're not positive about how it's pronounced, because you just read ahead a little bit, now you can sit there and listen. You've already read it, you know what it means, but now you're going to sit there and listen to exactly how that is said. So once you get to that point, you're kind of doing your ear tuning and your read throughs all at the same time. And that's where I am on a lot of languages myself. And I've only had a few students get that far so far. It's not something I tell every student, and I mean to. I will eventually. Any of my students out there listening to this, pay attention. You are eventually supposed to read ahead a little bit and kind of do your ear tuning at the same time you're doing your read throughs. So your read through is primarily listening for definitions, but anytime you're not absolutely sure how something is pronounced, you can read ahead a little bit and then just wait for the voice to catch up to there and listen exactly how that's said. So it kind of do 2 things at once. Okay. Next subject about ear tuning. A lot of my students are learning 2 languages at once. I have a policy. I don't teach people English if they're not otherwise learning a language from me. It's because I am somewhat selfish. I mean, look, if I'm teaching a guy who speaks Dutch, German, well, he's probably helped me out with my Dutch. Okay. Uh, I'm studying French, so if I'm going to teach you French, well, it's probably helping me too. I'm learning it better by teaching you. Okay. And in that case, if I'm teaching you French or if I'm teaching you German, I don't mind teaching you English along with. Uh, Most of the English is from interaction with me, but then I'll also give you an audio book to listen to in English. I'll give you ear tuning syllables for English, but I don't if someone speaking a language that I'm not interested in, they want to learn English from me, I'm probably not going to teach them English, okay? Because I am somewhat selfish in that way that I want to get something back from the time I put into teaching somebody, okay? Um, Now, that does not mean I could not someday set up a complete system for teaching English, which would not involve me directly. In other words, I direct them to the right audiobooks, I give them the ear tuning syllables, I have documented in, say, Spanish what the English sentences mean, or whatever their native language is. Then I could teach, if I taught one person, one Spanish speaker English, I could teach 1,000 people English that are Spanish speakers. I just give them all the same files. Wouldn't have to talk to any of them. So will I ever do that? I don't know. But so it's not that I won't teach someone English, but I limit it to my language partners as far as teaching English. And I have a whole lot of people learning English. And why am I mentioning this? Okay, the subject today is read throughs. Well, sometimes you're in a position like I have been where you're looking up words in one language before you can do read throughs. Okay. Now, I have found that if I'm looking up words in, say, Russian, and I have Russian playing in the background, then my ear will be drawn to the Russian because that's what's on my mind. And I can't actually get any work done and looking up new Russian words. So I have found that if you're doing this with two languages, you're trying to learn Spanish, trying to learn Russian at the same time, this is how you do it. While you're looking up those Russian words to create read through material for yourself, be listening to Spanish in the background. Because if your mind is totally riveted on Russian, you can ignore the Spanish. Later on, when you're looking up Spanish words, do your passive listening to the Russian. So I always suggest to anybody learn at least two languages so that if they have to do quote unquote study time, they can be doing the passive listening to the other language. Now, in such a let's carry that forward a little bit. Let's say you're learning Spanish and Russian, okay, and you're looking up the words yourself. How do you go about doing that exactly? So here you are looking up the Spanish words. You have Russian playing in the background, okay? Once you've looked up all those Spanish words, you now have some read through set up for the Spanish. Well, now read throughs are about definition, not so much the ear. You can go ahead and leave the Russian playing softly in the background. Maybe you want to turn it down a little more because you want to do a little bit of ear tuning along with the uh, read throughs for the Spanish, but you can still have some Russian passive listening going into your ear while you're doing the read throughs for the Spanish. Now, when would you not want to have the Russian playing in the background? Well, maybe you're going to stop and actually do some ear tuning exercises off of ear tuning syllables for Spanish. Then I would advise the only thing that you're hearing is Spanish, those following those ear tuning syllables, listening very, very carefully to each syllable being spoken, ignoring the definition. But if you're not doing actual ear tuning exercises, you can probably have a second language going in the background. So you started out looking up a bunch of Spanish words to create read through material, and then you're doing the read throughs for the Spanish, and finally you put the Spanish on for passive listening. Now you get the Russian dictionary out. Well, of course, on the computer these days, just means switch over to a different site. Well, I use Google Translate for almost everything, but I also use a lot of individual dictionaries to get more depth in the definition sometimes. I like Google because it does whole sentences, but a lot of the other sites have a lot more depth. A whole lot of definitions for one word that Google might only have 3 or 4. So I use both. So now you're doing your work with Russian, looking up Russian stuff, and now you got Spanish playing in the background. And you go ahead when you're done looking up a bunch of Russian stuff, do read throughs for it. Maybe you want to do some, if you want to do some ear tuning exercises, turn the Spanish off temporarily. You go into read throughs, turn the Spanish back on, maybe a little lower. Play now you're learning Spanish sort of because it's in your ear. At the same time, you're learning the Russian by you're setting up more read throughs. Okay. Now, if you learn from me, to a large extent, I have all kinds of material I'll send you. In a lot of cases, I'll just get on a audio call on Facebook. Anybody who wants, by the way, if you want to learn one of these languages from me, um, I got a lot of people just started. Just like 40 people started last week on various languages. I got room for some more, but I'm telling you, if you want to learn a language from me, please also, I want you to learn the system from me, and I want you to have a mind where you're going to try to teach it to the next person, okay? So if you're that type of person who wants to teach others and you think my system's a good way to learn, then by all means get in contact with me and to teach you that my system, I'm going to teach you a language because that's the best way for you to learn it. If you learn a language from me, you're going to live it. If you live it, you'll know it. There's nothing all that complicated about this. I mean, because of language barriers, it can take me a whole lot of time to explain to somebody that does not speak English, okay, or does not speak English very well, or doesn't maybe understand the particular phrases that I use because it is a somewhat technical subject. How do you tell a person to, okay, listen, uh, don't talk, but listen to it only? The exact words just to say that depends on the language, before the other person in their language will understand what you just said, okay? But anyway, uh, other than those communication issues, the whole system is relatively easy. Okay, I mean, just it's not that complicated to learn, but yet there is no better way than to learn a language. And my system doesn't take much time for you to learn Spanish or any other language I teach. It just doesn't take that much time. So why not learn a language from me? But right now, I got so many people just started this week that I'm telling you, I want to limit it to people who want to not just learn a language, but are interested in learning my system and teaching other people. Okay, so if you're in that category, by all means, get a hold of me. Again, just look up Lee Solden on Facebook. Pretty easy thing to do, and send me a message on Facebook Messenger, and I'll be glad to teach you a language. Okay, one of the 12 I know, or even get you started on Lithuanian or Japanese, or get you a good start on Afrikaans. Well, Afrikaans is close to Dutch, so I don't think I have any problem teaching Afrikaans really. Let me see here. Now, I want to get into tomorrow's lecture, which I'm going to start a whole new series. It's going to be the same thing, kind of, because I'm going to teach a language. I'm going to teach Dutch, okay? And I'm thinking about maybe also teaching Spanish at the same time in the lectures. And I'll tell you why. I always try to get people to learn 2 languages at the same time so they can do passive listening to one while they're working on the other. But here's here's the thing. If you're learning them both from me, I'm going to tell you what all the Spanish sentences mean, so you don't have anything to look up. And I'm going to tell you what all the Dutch sentences mean, so you have nothing to look up. So it may not apply to you, but here's some people do this. If they have a whole lot of Spanish to read, uh, even though they're supposed to be learning by read-throughs, they can do this. If I'm teaching you Spanish and Dutch at the same time, well, at some point you're going to be listening passively to Dutch, and you could be doing read-throughs for Spanish, but maybe you want to just hear the Dutch that day, just one language at a time. Well, then you could read all the notes for the other language. Okay, that gives you that option. Um, Also, if you're learning two languages simultaneously, a lot of times you can have Dutch playing and Spanish playing. Okay, maybe you could have a Dutch to Spanish audiobook playing, common phrase videos. At the same time, have full speed Dutch playing in the background. Okay, there's lots of. It gives you more combinations of stuff if you're learning two languages at once. I believe it makes your time more efficient. If you're spending time learning languages, why not learn two instead of just one? That's my take on it. And even three. See this guy here who's helped me out with teaching you guys Dutch starting tomorrow. He's learning. The main focus is German, although he's on a self-study program for German at this point. Uh, but the main thing I'm working with him right now is Brazilian Portuguese. Okay. The same time, he's had a bit of an introduction to Spanish last week. Sometime in about within a week from now, he's going to get an introduction into Italian, and he's already studying some Japanese on his own. And the two of us are looking at Afrikaans. So, okay, he's all over the place. I'm personally looking at 12 languages plus. Um, so I'm not saying that anybody should learn a whole lot of languages at the same time, but two or three of them and interweaving them such that it's more efficient is not a bad idea in my opinion. Um, so for the Dutch tomorrow, if you want to learn Dutch with me, or maybe you're not that interested in learning Dutch, maybe you want to learn German. Well, I'll tell you something. German isn't that far off of Dutch. Um, so if you learn Dutch, you're going to learn a whole lot of German, and be easier for you to step over to German. And mind you, I teach German. I'm going to teach Dutch in this series. Someone wants to contact me and have me teach them German, that's fine. I love teaching German. If anyone wants to you want to know, I love teaching German more than anything, followed by Spanish, followed by French. Those are my three favorite ones to teach. Anyone can get a hold of me.